okay, that was a long story, certainly more than 10 years. My personal research, I was involved in the question, what makes a person infectious or makes him or she, her, less infectious? Infectiousness, infectivity, really depends on the load of the virus in the genital secretions. And then, in the mid-90s, 96 or so, I first was approached by a couple who wanted to have a child. The male positive, she was negative, and they asked me whether I can tell them whether, based on our expertise, he was infectious or not. I was aware of the work of Enrico Semprini here in Milano, who was already starting 5 years earlier to wash semen, to clean it, to get rid of HIV in the seminal fluid or with the seminal cells. And that, so I got in contact with him. And since we have expertise to work with semen, I felt, we could also look into this. And we also helped him to further develop the methodology to improve the precision of this semen washing procedure. So I got involved in that field, and more and more patients came with these questions from all over Switzerland, also from other countries, and we treated them. And I was in a partnership with our artificial reproduction team at the Canton of Sankt-Gallenne, and we were offering that service. Now, when the time went on, over the next 5 years or six years or so, we were, of course, measuring all these symptoms, but these male patients were all getting on treatment, unlike the first patient. Okay. So, and then we realized, the semen was free of HIV. After year 2000, we had about 50 or more couples who came to us, and we couldn't find HIV in the semen of any of these men and women. So I asked myself, in getting a child through artificial insemination and washing semen, it's getting very complicated. With all the appointments you have to organize at the right time when ovulation is right. So that got so complicated. And then I started to realize for myself, when we are asking them to go through all this process, but internally I knew there was no risk. So I started to discuss this with the patients. And then I asked them, what do you think is the risk when you have sex tonight without a condom? And, the risk estimates were like 10% or 50%, even 100%. So they realized they were in a situation where they believed they had a huge risk of transmitting. I know they have a low risk, but all these couples and other patients think that they have a high risk to transmit it to somebody else, and that they are a threat to the public. So we started to discuss that on the individual cases. And we started to make a program and offering alternating services. In the beginning, we said, you could also do an alternative thing. Let's say you get excellent treatment, you have no STDs, we can make sure there's no virus in the semen. In addition, the HIV negative woman could take a drug that now is known as PrEP. You could take the drug for a few days before conception, and that would work. So, or would help to reduce the risk. So, in the beginning, these couples started to think about it, and then I realized 1 in 10 did rather have an insemination procedure, but the majority wanted to try this. So we offered that, we did that. We still had the situation that we were confronted with the fact that the patients had a different view of transmission risk. And we felt that is ethically not correct. And we thought these patients should know what we know. They should know that the risk is really very low. So then we started to look into the risk. We looked at all the studies that were published. There were, when you look at any study that looks at patients under fully suppressive treatment, there's not a single case. And we started to even extrapolate the experience. We were talking to each other in Switzerland. Has anybody seen such a case? We were asking other experts. We were not aware of one single case where transmission was observed. Now imagine we are telling every person on the fully suppressive treatment, you have to use condoms. We had no evidence to do so. People often came to me and said, you have no evidence to say there's no risk. The opposite is the case. You have no evidence to say you should use condoms because we have never observed such a case. We have to inform the patients, and first we said we also have to inform the general practitioners, the physicians in Switzerland.
What was the reaction?
And that was the Swiss statement. The Swiss statement was an information addressed to the Swiss physicians, and it was telling them, listen, it's okay to tell the patient what we know or what we see. We haven't ever seen a case. Risks must be low. They're very low. We even said it must be, they're so low, it can be considered negligible. Why did we say this? It was by far lower than any other risk in medical life that we were looking at. For instance, passive smoking. We looked at studies that looked at the risk of passive smoking. It's by far more dangerous. But this is not something that is distributed. So many other risks. Or which was very interesting, the risk of transmitting hepatitis C by sexual contact, or at least vaginal contact, was real. We knew, we have seen a few cases, but still we did tell our hep C serodiscordant couples the risk can be considered as negligible. You can have sex without condom, that's not a problem. For hep C, why not for HIV, where we have never seen a case? So all these considerations, supported us to really come out with this statement where it's very strong and clear, formulated. If there are no, additional risks, we think you can talk to your partner and you can openly discuss it. Really important, which was overwhelming to me, I did not expect that, was the reaction of patients. I realized there was a big relief. And I wasn't aware of the pressure that these HIV positive people had. I'm not as dangerous as I always thought. And that was such an important message. I didn't estimate this to be that important to them, but of course it was. And then on a scientific or more professional level, I was really opposed to very strong opposition. There were experts who said, "Of course you're right. We know, but you cannot tell this to the public or to the patient."
But why? What did you say about it?
They said, if you tell this to patients, they will never use condoms and HIV will spread. And The other part of the opposition was, this is not right. So at least we had half of the opponents who said, you're right. And dealing with the question, you cannot say this, was much easier for me. So at least we had those who said, you're right, but you cannot tell it. To deal with the others, I tried to go into the opposite position and say, okay, but why don't you just give me the evidence that there is a risk? Because if you consider this in life and in mathematics in general, you cannot prove something that is not existent. You can only prove that something is occurring. You cannot prove mathematically, it's impossible that something will not occur. You can only say the risk is lower. When you observe longer, the risk gets lower and lower. You can never say there is no risk. So we said on a practical level, it's no risk. And practical level to me is if a risk is as low as our daily risks in our daily life, I mean, you can consider it as negligible.